fantastic to see so many people joining for today's session, which kicks off this 6-part webinar series, Xero for Groups, the App Advantage. All right, great. Well, look, let me just get started because there's a couple of housekeeping points to run through at the beginning in any event. So, thank you so much for joining today. I've been so looking forward to this session. In terms of housekeeping, there will be a slot for Q&A at the very end. Please do fire through any questions as they come to you in the Q&A or the chat section. In terms of the plan for today, I'm going to do some intros. We'll get into the discussion. We've got time set aside for Q&A, and then we'll talk about what's coming up across the rest of the series. And just in terms of introducing myself, so my name is David Tuck. I am the co-founder and CEO at Mayday and CFO Techstack. I'm an accountant by training, so started my career with Deloitte, was twice a Xero using finance leader of multi-entity businesses. I've been an accounting tech entrepreneur for the last decade. I was the founder and CEO of Chaser, the accounts receivable software, and then I've been building Mayday with Griff, my co-founder, and our amazing team for coming up for 3 years now. And at Mayday, we're for larger Xero users. So the majority of our customers have in-house finance teams. Our mission is to mend month end, starting with the needs of multi-entity businesses, so recharges, cross-entity bank rec, keeping intercompany loans in balance. Our most recent review is titled Where Beautiful Accounting Software Meets Marvelous Multi-Entity Month End. And we've also broadened out recently into the ability to recharge between different departments within the same entity. Now, we won Xero's Emerging App Partner of the Year award last year, and off the back of that ran a shamelessly titled webinar, Mayday, What is All the Fuss About? And off the back of doing that, we really kind of identified that there was a broader need here that needs to be addressed around, is Xero still the right system for me as a business? Can I scale with it? And yes, if yes, how long for? Indefinitely, or what will be the point at which I outgrow it? And the nature of uncertainty is that when we don't know something, it leads us to act earlier. The ERP move, been described by one of our customers as horrible and hectic. It's incredibly expensive, and all of that is before 58% of ERP implementations fail. So we came up with this idea of what we call peace of mind, the peace of mind that I can continue to scale with my SME accounting system with Xero well into my growth phase as a business. But the problem was there's an absence of precedent around how best to do that. And so too many businesses make the wrong decision in the absence of that precedent. So that's what we wanted to fill. We ran our building an enterprise level system with Xero series around how you can build a best-in-class kind of tech stack around Xero. Got an amazing response to that back in September. Was lucky enough to be joined by Alex for the launch webinar of that series as well. 800 registrants, amazing feedback. And that became the starting point for building our CFO tech stack community. Really creating the resource that I wish I'd had as a finance leader, the content and community to fill the unmet need, to bridge the awareness gap, to demystify and show what it's possible to do with Xero plus its ecosystem, to provide that precedent. We've been running an incredible weekly newsletter since October last year, gets incredible feedback, so much insight to deliver there. We've created the FLAC, the Finance Leader Advisory Council, as a representative body for finance leaders using Xero. And watch this space for Stacked coming in September, the equivalent of XeroCon for in-house finance leaders that we're so excited to launch. This series is all about being a group of companies specifically using Xero. That might be a corporate group with a parent entity, might be a joint venture, might be multiple businesses owned by the same people. Whichever of those it is, it's the economic activity between them. And so I was really keen just at the start of this webinar just to pose a couple of survey questions, which should now pop up on screen, about whether you currently use Xero and how many entities there are in your group. So if people could just take a couple of seconds to respond on those. and then we'll have the answers for you very shortly. So this series is very much framed against the backdrop of how can we be useful to our target customer? And that really channels through everything we do at CFO Techstack. It's not product marketing. It's not about how to build a best-in-class app stack. There's a reason I'm not wearing a Mayday t-shirt. It's about righting the misconception, bridging that awareness gap in terms of what it's possible to do with Xero plus its ecosystems. Equally, it's not about overcorrecting and replacing one myth with another. You know, there will be times where it's right for groups to make the ERP move, but you know, there's so many opportunities that aren't addressed today. Brilliant. So we've got the survey results up on screen there. We've got 89% already using Xero, and then 11% who are very interested in how Xero can work for your group. And that's really it in terms of positioning. Xero is about beautiful business. This series is how to become a gorgeous group. And so with that, what better segue into introducing my panel today? I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Alex, Annie, and Paresh. So, Alex, if I could start with you, if you could perhaps give us an introduction.
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. And David, thanks for inviting me back to your webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to work with Mayday, and obviously a pleasure to be invited. Look, let me give you a very brief introduction. I just saw the percentages. Thank you for everyone who knows Xero and is using Xero. I really appreciate that. The quick story for anyone who doesn't know it, we were founded almost 18 years ago in New Zealand. We came to the UK very early during our journey, and Xero was really founded cloud native from the beginning, right? We've only ever been a cloud company. And we sell cloud software, particularly in the bookkeeping and accounting and compliance space, in the payroll space. And we also offer payments and kind of financial vehicles, right? That's really the way to think of Xero. You have your accounting, your payroll, and your payments. Now, we mostly sell through two different ways. The vast majority of the way we go to market is through a sales team, and we particularly engage with accounting and bookkeeping practices who then sell Xero subscriptions on to their businesses. The second one is we do have businesses that buy from Xero directly. More often than not, once they've done that, they will connect their Xero subscription back into an accounting and bookkeeping practice. A very few handful of businesses will work with Xero directly without an accountant and bookkeeper. That's our go-to-market. In the UK, we have over 1 million businesses connected to Xero. And when you think about, I guess, the size of transactions that we see on the Xero systems, we see 2.8 billion pounds going or being accounted for on Xero systems on a daily basis. And we have over 600 people working for Xero in the UK. And the vast majority of that is either sales side or customer experience side, if ever anyone needed to contact Xero regarding a customer experience problem. That's kind of the snapshot. I think in the context of today's conversation, what's really important is from its founding moment, 18 years ago, our founder, Rod, said, listen, I need to build an open API ecosystem. Xero will not and cannot possibly satisfy every single use case of every single feature and every single functionality for every single segment and every single sector and every single industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we cannot become best in class in all of those things. And so it was very important from the beginning to allow third parties to develop their own applications that they could then easily plug into the Xero app ecosystem. And so today, worldwide, we have thousands of apps that are available in kind of the app store for Xero, and where you can connect third-party services. And Mayday is one of the lighthouse examples of that here in the UK, particularly around multi-entity. And multi-entity is a very interesting case in point where we're simply aware as Xero that we are not focused on, and we cannot focus on ourselves building out all the features and functionalities to satisfy multi-entity. But that's okay because we have someone like Mayday that does it for us, does it better than we possibly could, and the API allows that kind of service to be available. And that's just one example of multi-entity. Obviously, you could talk about carbon footprint accounting. You could talk about, you know, more advanced analytics or reporting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that helps as an introduction, David, in terms of what Xero is and where we came from, and also why I'm talking to you today as part of this webinar series.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And look, we have some additional interesting insights pop up on screen about who our audience are today. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing that information. Brilliant to see the range of different types of groups and not yet groups, but people getting ahead of that transition by joining today. Annie, if I could come over to you for your intro briefly, and then I'll intro Paresh.
Sure. So my name is Annie Hawkins. I'm an account manager at Xero, looking after franchises and groups. So I cover all types of multi-entity businesses, different industries. My role involves guiding those businesses through their Xero journey and tailoring our solutions to meet their specific needs. I've been with the company for 5 years now and absolutely love what I do. Very lucky.
Amazing. And then Paresh, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you could perhaps tell us a little bit about yourself and about Outernet.
Yep, sure. Thanks, David, for having me on the webinar today. So I'm Paresh. I'm head of finance at Outernet London, which is a subsidiary of Consolidated Group, which is a real estate company. I joined Outernet in November 2021, which we used Sage Intacct when I joined. And last year, when we got our new CFO in, we decided to move over to a new system where I did a few trials with Xero and QuickBooks and other Sage platforms, ultimately settling on Xero, and it's been a dream since.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for being here, everyone. And Paresh, you talked about that transition and that process that you went through. I know that you've worked very closely with Annie in relation to that. So perhaps you could tell us about that introduction to Annie and the support you received there. And then Annie, off the back of that, if you could provide some more clarity around the support that is out there for groups either already on or looking to move to Xero.
Yep, sure, no worries. So I did not know that Xero could manage groups. I was trying to go in at a level of, I'll get the trial version first and then try and see what I can do around that. It wasn't until I got to the intercompany stage where I was like, okay, I don't actually know what I need to do next, because there was no way of integrate. Like in my mind, there was no way of seeing like an external app that would pull the companies together. Then I reached out to the Xero customer service, and they advised Mayday, where I met David. David came in and had a chat with me about how we can run groups via Xero, where he introduced me to Annie. And I think that was the part that drove me into moving into Xero, was the fact that there was support for groups, which I was not aware of at the time, which has actually been very helpful.
Amazing.
Some of the stories that I've heard have been incredible from our partners, life-changing in some cases, because as you can imagine, Xero is very pivotal to their businesses. And then in August of last year, Xero created this new role, which was looking after franchises and groups. So that was for franchises and groups that are either with Xero already and were looking at growing with Xero and weren't sure if perhaps Xero was the right platform for them, because maybe their needs were complex and they were getting too big for Xero, or either they wanted to move over from another desktop to Xero, and they needed help.
We absolutely got the kind of clear message coming through there, that there is now the sort of Xero for Groups account management support, and having had the opportunity to work with so many of those groups at Mayday, Paresh being a prime example, we know that that's a kind of fantastic support there for groups either already on or looking to move over to Xero. Paresh, if I could perhaps bring it back to you, because your story at Outernet is so kind of fascinating, right? It's your 46 entities as a group as of today.
Yep, so there's 46 and we're continually growing. Some of them are just holding companies, but it's there's intercompany transactions going around the group. But yeah, it's a multitude of industries as well. So you've got a bit of hotel, a bit of leisure, you've got real estate, you've got the media and the media side as well. So you've got a range of different industries involved with it. So it's nice that Xero can like adjust and be customized in a way that you can get into those different industries. So it's not even it just focuses on one industry. It kind of goes into all other ones as well.
And perhaps could you just take us a step back? So you talked about how you joined the business late in 2021.
Yeah.
What was the process that led you to look to move away from Sage Intacct?
So when I joined, we used Sage Intacct. I was getting views from the team that it wasn't a very user-friendly system. The issues we had with Sage Intacct was it was very rigid in what you could do. The reporting was quite rigid. It was costly for what it was actually providing us. The team found it difficult to even do corrections because if you had to do a correction, it would take ages to try and figure out the right process. And I think the team and I kind of got to a point where we were like, okay, we need to move system. We know we have to move system. What's out there? When Simon, who joined us from Toaster, came in, he used Xero at Toaster. And he suggested that we look at Xero. At the same time, I started looking at QuickBooks, which the company used before Sage Intacct and Sage Financials. And I kind of weighed up the options between the two. Ultimately, we went with, once I found out there was the option to do Xero for groups, we did go with Xero, and it kind of made the process of how we're running things so much better. So it was more about, we looked at what issues we had with Sage Intacct and if Xero could fix it. And from at this stage, it has fixed everything that we were having issues with.
Amazing. So interesting. And in terms of the implementation and transition as a project, how did you go about undertaking that?
So I did it on my own with my team. So we did it in-house, so we didn't have to pay out any more extra. The positive side was that Annie and Natasha, who's the consultant who's supporting us in the implementation, they were great support. That was the main thing that helped the whole thing. Is if I had a question, whether it was a silly question or any question, they would book in a call and actually sit down with you and go through the solution. And that kind of helped. So it was kind of like you were kind of handheld through the process, but only at points where you needed it. You weren't like overwhelmed with that support. It was when you needed it, it was given.
Amazing. And with the benefit of hindsight that you have now, any things that you might do differently?
Oh, if there's anything I'll do differently, I think I would have given myself more time to implement. So it was decided at like middle of December that we would move over to Xero, to start on the 1st of January. So we're still going through our final couple of entities being implemented into Xero, but our big main entities have been put in as at the 1st of Jan. But I would have given myself a bit more time to get that data over from the old system to the new system and adjusting it into the formats that we wanted it to. And I think over the last couple of months since the 1st of January, it's been helpful to find like the different apps that we can build into the system, to try and create a more automated flow throughout the whole of our finance process.
Amazing. And that segues brilliantly into what my next question was going to be around. Tell us about that. This series is Xero for Groups, the app advantage. So run us through the app stack that you've built.
Okay, so obviously we start with Xero. Annie's been a great help with putting in Xero HQ, which has all our entities listed under that HQ area. My concern was that we would have one login per entity and we wouldn't be able to like see them in one view and try and get to each one. So that helped a lot. And then we looked at how we were going to do our intercompanies because we've got quite a few intercompany transactions going through the group. With 47 entities, as you can imagine, the spreadsheets get huge. So when I spoke to Xero customer support, they provided me with Mayday as the partner for intercompany transactions, which was where all the group systems that we chose started from. So with Mayday, we do all our intercompany transactions through there. No more, we don't use Excel spreadsheets anymore to do our intercompany transactions, which is a blessing. We currently use Mayday for everything, and it's very self-explanatory. Then we looked at how we were going to work through approval flows. So we got Approval Max, which is helping with setting up contacts which have to go through different levels of approval for different, like if it's a customer or if it's a supplier. We're also looking at, like, we're putting our implementation into phases. So we're looking at later in the year putting in purchase orders with approval limits on a purchase order. So we got Approval Max into our tech stack as well. And recently we got Sift, which is a reporting tool, which we found really useful. It does our group consolidations, which used to be done on Excel. It's kind of moved everything into a live environment, so you can literally do your consolidations live if you have to. And then we're looking at other options around, like other integrations between, like if we're trying to do a retail store for like our charity and stuff, like there's different other areas, but that's going into a different phase. But yeah, so we've got Xero, Mayday, Sift, and Approval Max currently.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Paresh. And one point I was really keen to kind of pick up on, and I vividly remember our meeting near your offices near Tottenham Court Road, sort of late last year. And this is around, I think there can be a conception that, okay, scaling with Xero versus moving to an ERP, it's about how close can I get to parity and how can I avoid the cost of the ERP subscription and the implementation fees. And one thing that I think gets missed so often is that actually there is in some cases, like vastly superior level of functionality and automation available with Xero plus its ecosystem compared to the different modules that you might get with a NetSuite, that you might get with Intact. And whenever I kind of am talking about that point, I go back to our meeting and sort of have that image of your response when you saw, what you could do with Mayday compared to natively what you could do in Intact plus your spreadsheet. So yeah, I was just keen for that to be a point that we brought out of this series. It's not just about parity. That's not the ceiling. There is so much more. And I wondered, like Paresh, if you had any thoughts on that, but Alex and Annie equally, if there was anything from your side.
I think that, so we're currently trying to scale our processes to be in line with like industry standards, and we're trying to grow to a point where we're doing our regular group consolidations, our eliminations, and trying to drive future planning, which is going to be into the next phases of our reporting tool, which is Sift. And I think that's a good point of, we're not looking at what Sage Intacct can do and then trying to replicate in Xero. We're trying to build on what our business needs. And whether that's the same thing or even more, we try and work towards that goal. And I think what we've done so far in the space of like 3 months has been quite an interesting journey. And it shows that you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on an ERP system to get the same results.
Amazing.
Yeah, David, I just wanted to add that I have conversations with groups and franchises asking the question where they want to be in the future, because we might solve problems now, but let's look at where you want to get to and have conversations about our ecosystem at the present, so you know what's coming up in the future and you can adapt to that and know that you can grow at scale with Xero as well. Apologies again that I lost contact.
No, not at all. Not at all. And actually, Annie, I think we might come back over to you now, if that's okay, because we've had a couple of people come through in the questions about Xero HQ. There seems to be a keen interest in that off the back of hearing Paresh's story with it. So perhaps if you could maybe speak to that sort of briefly about what's on offer for groups there.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, before Xero HQ used to be for accountants and bookkeepers, and we've opened it up now to franchises and groups. Some of the benefits that you get with Xero HQ is, like, for example, Paresh has got 46 entities. If he gets a new member of staff and needs to invite them into those subscriptions, that can be it can be done, obviously, but it would be quite laborious. You don't want to have a million different email addresses as well having to be set up. In Xero HQ, it's very streamlined. You can invite people into, just a couple of subscriptions or all of the subscriptions in the group. Onboarding new companies as well is a much easier and streamlined process with Xero HQ. So we have groups that have very particular reporting styles. So they might customize our reporting templates. You can do that one time in HQ and then drop those report templates into each of your subscriptions. Again, you're just having to do that one time. With franchises, I come across franchise networks that like all of their franchisees to be on one chart of accounts, because that makes KPI setting, benchmarking, comparisons a lot easier as well. And then also with HQ, the more subscriptions that you hold with Xero within your HQ, you benefit from discounts, ongoing discounts. So we have different partner tiers. So they start at bronze, go to silver, gold and platinum. And each one of those will have a unique discount, an ongoing discount. And then, of course, you can buy subscriptions in bulk, which again would come with those advantages as well. That's very top line of what some of the advantages are. There are some more that might be unique to certain groups of franchises, but that gives you an idea.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Annie, because we had a couple of questions on that, including from Sophie. So thank you so much for addressing those. Then we've got a question from Glenn around transaction limits. So we've had this came up quite a bunch of times in the building enterprise level system, Glenn. So there's some really useful insights on that, and we're actually pulling together an article about that on CFO Techstack. So I won't dive into that today, but watch out for the link to that in the kind of the recording that we post after this, and please do kind of subscribe to CFO Techstack, because there's a lot more information coming from us to collate the insights that we've learned there. A couple of questions, one for Paresh. Do you use an app for cash flow forecasting at all?
Not yet. That is our next step. I've been looking at the cash flow forecasting within SIFT. And I've seen the question about whether it pulls in different income from different income streams, because we have multiple different areas that our income comes from. So it is on our pipeline. We just need to try and get to that phase. Sorry about that.
No, amazing. Thank you so much. And then, really interesting question from Richard around when using international entities where Xero is less well known. Would you focus on consolidating from multiple softwares, or would you encourage them to move over to Xero despite regions not having, necessarily the same depth of support? And look, that's a really interesting question, Richard. And we see people do a combination. What I've also seen with Mayday, which I think is really interesting, is there's a bunch of businesses there who will run a parallel Xero organization for that particular territory. From a bookkeeping perspective, they'll use another software for the local tax filings, but to be able to access the benefits of Mayday, of whichever kind of consolidation tool that they use. So we have Join on the webinar tomorrow. They will also run a parallel Xero organization. So we see a mix of both. But we also see that kind of middle ground option of, in order to be able to access the full benefits that the Xero ecosystem has to offer, kind of spinning up a parallel Xero organization for that. I'm very conscious of time, and I always forget with these webinars, just how kind of evocative they are and how much discussion they prompt, which is absolutely fantastic and is so sort of fulfilling for us in terms of the value that we get to deliver by pulling these webinars together. I'm going to come to each of our fantastic panel for one kind of closing piece of advice, one top tip for scaling as a group with Xero before I wrap things up with what's coming up over the rest of the series. So if it's okay, Alex, I'll come to you first, and then I'll go to Annie, and I'll close with Paresh.
I think my top tip, David, would be exactly what you're doing right now. Participate in these kind of webinars, right? I think Look, one of the challenges we sometimes hear from some of our customers is, because Xero has over 1,000 apps, right? One of the favorite topics of anyone who discusses Xero is, what is the app stack, right? And Paresh just described his. I'm sure, you know, if you actually went through all the participants here, everybody will have variations on the app stack. And the reality is, you know, you really can architect the app stack that works best for you. I'm extremely humbled to know that we play a big role in kind of being the backbone to that app stack, but the needs of every single group and company will be very different. And the best way to inform yourself on that is just network, and talk to others. We love the fact that we can extend the if you will, the lifespan of Xero as companies grow. Yes, we often talk of our focus being micro and small businesses. In the reality, we probably need to revise that internally, right? Because increasingly we're seeing that we do have some very, very large groups that are using Xero quite successfully. But that's thanks to the expansion of that app stack and you know, a company like Mayday in particular. You know, I think Annie's role is a testament to the fact that we've kind of gotten the memo that we do need to help groups and franchises along in the use of Xero. It's not only just accounting and bookkeeping practices. It's definitely multi-entity groups and franchises. And so my encouragement is, you know, network, listen to what other people are using, see to what extent that helps you. And then Xero is obviously always available. I think someone did mention, well, Paresh, you mentioned you actually came to Xero Customer Experience and they then recommended for you to kind of discover Mayday, right? So we're also just a very good source generally in terms of being able to point you in the right direction as well.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Alex. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you. I'd actually like to be greedy and suggest two, if that's okay. So the first one would be, if what I've said today about the partner program interests you for your franchise or your group, please do get in touch. If you're on Xero already, that's absolutely fine. You can reach out to me. If you're not on Xero and want to talk about moving over to Xero and that migration piece, how we can support that. So get in touch, annie.hawkins@xero.com. And then my second piece would be, we're cloud-based, and the benefit of being cloud-based, amongst lots of other things, is that we're ever evolving. So we definitely listen to our customers and our users and just, you know, adapt the product to their specific needs, which is great. But that means that there's a lot of updates. And one thing that we have is a great hub for all of our training and support and our product updates. So if you were to go to central.xero.com, type in product updates, you'll get a list of those there. A lot of people will say to me, oh, I wish Xero could do this or that. And actually it can already. It's just that they didn't know it could. So yeah, if you keep up to date with our product updates, that would be fantastic as well.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Annie. And Paresh, over to you.
So my piece of advice would be exactly what Alex said, and what I found useful when I was implementing was to reach out. Don't feel like yourself like need to go through this all alone. To reach out to your network, to reach out to Xero, to reach out to whoever you meet on your journey, and just try and find out what best works for you. There could be advice that you're given that you're maybe reserved about, but just take everything on board. And I think as you go through your journey, you'll find that it's actually you're actually doing the right thing in terms of looking at different apps and different systems. So just use your network for as much as you can.
Amazing. Amazing. And I think that's so right. Like from my own perspective, and in terms of positioning this series, Alex has talked about it, you know, the core route to market from a Xero perspective, accountants and bookkeepers to sort of smaller businesses. So appreciate, you know, how it can sort of feel like, okay, you know, not the sort of core focus, but that's so far from the truth. I mean, we talk gorgeous groups, we talk beautiful business. We've also got kind of amazing Annie with us on the webinar today. So, you know, it's been amazing to see, like Paresh, you know, the example of the value you've got from that and how representative that is, you know, of all the groups that we've sort of, you know, worked with who've worked with Annie. Like that support is absolutely there from Xero. And so very much the spirit that's come across all three of those fantastic pieces of advice there is that there is that support, there is that community, and it's about, you know, it's about engaging with it and then asking the question. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your kind of engagement, your fantastic kind of questions today. I'm just going to run through what's coming up over the next 5 webinars, because yeah, we're running it fast. We're going Noah's Ark style and kind of doing webinars 2 by 2 across the next 3 days. So coming up this afternoon, we've got month end automation with myself, Griff, my co-founder at Mayday, Caroline Viles from Gaia Fertility, Graham Shapiro from My Accountant. And then tomorrow, we've got consolidated reporting to start us off with Harriet Hope from Arbalus, Ryan Piercy from Scrutton Bland, and Harry Simons from Join. And then we've got spend management with Becky Cawley-Hassel from Saragossa. We've got Asif from Cooper Parry, and then we've got Chloe from Pleo. And then we've got accounts payable with Sam from Thorn Widgery. We've got Hilary from Bridge Financials and Tom from Lightyear. And then closing off the series when it comes to foreign exchange, we've got Carl from Genflow, John from Beaver and Struthers, and James from Airwallex. So we really look forward to seeing you across the rest of the series. Please do remember to subscribe to CFO Techstack, to watch this space for all of the content we have coming your way to kind of bridge that awareness gap, and yeah, keep your eyes peeled for Stacked coming in September. Thank you so much for joining us for the kickoff of the series. And once again, a huge thank you to our fantastic panel, Alex, Annie, and Paresh. It's been brilliant to kick off the series with you, and look forward to what's ahead. Thank you so much.